Chapter 4. The Clerk of Oxford's Tale.
The quiet clerk looked sad when the landlord said to him,
"Forget your books and your long face, and tell us a story. Remember, lots of interesting things must happen in it, and please make it easy for us to understand."
"Very well,"
answered the poor clerk.
"It's an old Italian story, and with God's help, we can all learn something from it about strong husbands and faithful wives."
Then he began.
King Walter ruled Saluzzo in Italy. His people loved him, but he was sad because he had no wife and no son.
"I can only be happy with an obedient wife,"
he said. But it wasn't easy to find an obedient woman in Saluzzo. From time to time, King Walter went into town in dirty old clothes. He liked visiting his people when they didn't recognize him. One day, in his old clothes, Walter met a poor man, Janicula, and his beautiful daughter, Griselda. Every day, Griselda brought water home for her father, and Walter watched her at work. She was a good and obedient daughter.
"She's the perfect wife for me,"
he decided. So Walter, in his old clothes, visited Janicula.
"Can I marry your daughter?"
he asked.
"Of course,"
answered Janicula. Then Walter spoke to Griselda.
"I want to marry you,"
he said.
"I asked your father, and he said yes. But before we marry, promise me something."
What?
asked Griselda.
"When we are husband and wife, you must always be obedient. Sometimes it's going to hurt you, but you must never question me."
I promise,
said Griselda. Then Walter said to Griselda,
"Now I can tell you my secret. I am King Walter."
After the wedding, Griselda became famous in Saluzzo.
"What a good, beautiful woman!"
people said.
"And what an obedient wife!"
Soon she had a daughter. When the child was very little, the king decided to test his wife.
"Our daughter can't stay with us,"
he said.
"She must go and live in a house far away."
Griselda remembered her promise before the wedding.
of course.
She said. So Walter took their young daughter to a good family in a house far away and left her there. After 2 years, Griselda had a son. Everyone in Saluzzo was happy. But when the boy was 2 years old, Walter tested his wife again.
"Our son can't stay with us,"
he said.
"He must go and live in a house far away."
Again, Griselda remembered her promise before the wedding.
Of course,
she said. So Walter went back to the family in the house far away and left their young son there with their daughter. When their daughter was 16 years old and their son 14, the king decided to test Griselda one more time. He sat down at his writing table and wrote a false letter. It said,
To King Walter of Saluzzo. You can leave your first wife, Griselda, and marry again. This time to a woman from a good family. Your friend, Pope Urban VI.
Walter took the false letter to Griselda and said,
This is from the Pope. Now I can leave you and marry a rich young wife.
Griselda felt very sad, but she remembered her promise.
Of course.
She said,
I can go back to live with my father.
Then the king brought his son and his daughter back home in rich clothes. He didn't tell Griselda their true names, and, after 12 years away, she didn't recognize them.
This is my new wife and her young brother,
said Walter. Then he asked Griselda,
Before you leave, can you help my new wife into her wedding dress?
Of course.
She said. And she went to her daughter's room and helped the young girl into the beautiful dress. After that, Griselda took off her rich queen's clothes, put on a poor woman's dress, and went back to her father's house.
What a perfect wife,
said Walter. At once, he took his children to Janicula's house. There, he spoke to his wife.
Griselda,
he said,
the Pope's letter was false. There was no wedding today. I have no new wife. This is your daughter, Vera, and this is your son, Fidelio. I took them from you many years ago, but now they are back with us again.
Can this be true?
Griselda cried, with a smile on her face.
Yes, Mother.
It's us, said Vera and Fidelio. At once, Griselda took her 2 children in her arms. All 3 of them cried happily. Then they went back home with Walter. After that, the king stopped testing his wife, and they and their children lived happily in Saluzzo for many years.